but I just didn't have time, and next time I will ask her.
일은 어떤 건지 뭐 이런 것들 여러 가지가.
I was saddened because I wasn't sure when the next time would be, knowing it wouldn't come too soon. As we said our goodbyes, the last embrace couldn't have been long enough. I cried, and even walking through the security screening area, my heart ached to be with my birth mother. It was almost as if I had reverted back to being a child, not wanting to leave what felt safe and so right. As I waved each time the security doors opened, before I knew it, they were out of sight. As I boarded the plane, I reflected on my trip and the reunion. I knew I would never regret coming to Korea and meeting my birth mother. As I cherished the times we spent on my short trip, I began to wonder what was next. I love you. After reuniting with my birth mother, I feel complete. There are still many more questions that still need to be answered, but my heart is content for now with what I've learned. When I first started searching for my roots, I never actually thought I could dig up enough courage to go through with it. 8 years ago, when I moved to Guam, I never really thought I wanted to find my birth mother. She was a distant memory, and I honestly didn't want to dredge up all the emotions that came with feeling abandoned or regretting being so unique growing up in a predominantly white community. Guam was where I could be myself and still be different, but not too different. Looking back, the entire journey from the doubts, the stresses, the roller coasters of emotion, the drama, the fear, everything, it was all worth it. I still keep in contact with my birth mother, mostly through email. I am hoping to bring her and my 2 sisters out to Guam sometime next year. While we may have been separated 20 years ago, my journey has made me realize that I want to stay as close as I can to both of my families. I am blessed with 2 amazing families, one who gave me up so many years ago to give me a better life and opportunities to fulfill the American dream, another that molded me and taught me how to live life to its fullest. I'm glad I don't have to make a choice to pick one. God has blessed me with both to help me grow through life. Through my story, I hope I have given others the courage to seek out their birth parents, bring families together, or even encourage some to adopt a child. When I was 8 years old, my mom bought me a poem that summarizes everything about my adoption. It was a gift to my birth mother, and I hope it's a gift to you. The poem is entitled The Legacy of an Adopted Child by Patsy Moore. Once there were 2 women who never knew each other. One you do not remember, the other you call mother. 2 different lives shaped to make yours one. One became your guiding star, the other became your sun. The first gave you life, and the second taught you to live it. The first gave you a need for love, and the second taught you how to give it. One gave you a nationality, the other gave you a name. One gave the seed of talent, the other gave you an aim. One gave you emotions, the other calmed your fears. One saw your first sweet smile, the other dried your tears. One gave you up, it was all that she could do. The other prayed for a child, and God led her straight to you. And now you ask me to make it clear, the age-old question through the years. Heredity or environment, which are you the product of? Neither, my darling, neither. Just 2 different kinds of love.
We were city slickers.
When Marion Johnston Titano talks about pre-war times, boy, was it a blast. She was young, styling, an entrepreneur. She was beautiful. Her father was retired Marine William Johnston, her mother, educator Agatha Johnston.
It's a very loving family that I grew up with.
When the Japanese invaded Guam in 1941, her life would change forever.
We heard the planes go over, and then word came from Sumai that Sumai was being bombed.
Without warning, Marion left her beauty shop where she was working at the time and immediately began searching for her family.
I was taken back to Agana, and so were my parents, and we were given some sort of identification that they did to the Jewish people in Europe.
During the Japanese occupation, freedom didn't exist. It was replaced with pain and suffering. The people of Guam were forcibly subjected to the Japanese lifestyle administered by the Japanese Navy. While some measure of religious practice and business activities were permitted, atrocities were common.
We had to be very, very careful of what we said, what we did, anything like that, because we still carried the Johnston name. That was the name of my father. So we had, so all those 3 years, it wasn't really living, it was just existing, you know.
One of the more difficult times for Marion, the loss of her father and the man she loved.
My father, you know, it's kind of emotional. My father was taken prisoner, and he was the first one that died in Japan. I, too, the first casualty of the war was the Navy ensign from the USS Penguin. I was engaged to him, and he was the first casualty. So losing somebody I was engaged to and my father, who I was dear to, kind of was quite painful.
While she mourned their deaths, her journey during the war would become even harder. Like thousands of other Chamorros at the time, they were sent to concentration camps. Marion was sent to Menengan.
It got to the point that we didn't have time to even embrace each other or talk to each other, because it was just march, march, march. You fell down, you got up, you marched, you know, there was no such thing. If you decide to stay on the side of the road, so be it. Nobody's going to pick you up. And several people did. I mean, they just couldn't take it, so they just crawled to the side of the road, and they were kept, they were just left there to rot. Either that, or they'll beat you up, you know, and whip you to get up. And if you can't make it, then life goes on. You're there. Not even the families were allowed to rescue the ones that fell.
After marching all those miles from Maiti to Menengan, the pain continued. It was hell.
The only thing that we had over our head was not even a thatched roof, anything. It was just the leaves of the coconut trees were just put together like a wigwam, and that's what we laid on. And then lying down, we only had, again, strips of coconut. And when it rained, water came all the way down to you, and then the groaning and the whining and it was just so piercing, you know. You try to block it out, but you can't, because it's right next to your shoulder, next to your leg, because we were all cramped in together.
The concentration camps in Guam were established by the 29th Division of Japan's Kwantung Army. It's estimated about 600 Chamorros were executed. Some were beheaded. Marion considers herself lucky she made it through those times and only last year learned to forgive when she visited the USS Missouri in Hawaii.
You can just hate so long. And did I hate? Did I? Yes, I did. I hated because I said I lost my boyfriend and my father, and all the, you know, the comfort that I was brought up with was taken away from me, and I just didn't live life the way I wanted to. So yes, I was bitter.
And while the bitterness turned to forgiveness, Marion, like many others who survived the Japanese occupation, are still searching for the answer to why war reparations weren't granted for the thousands of innocent Chamorros who endured 3 years of pain and suffering.
Why the United States government forgave Japan for the atrocities that happened here. Yet, now, I don't begrudge the Japanese, I mean, they too had suffered, okay? But they were compensated by the millions, and we were not compensated because the United States government relieved Japan of their obligation with us. And yet, all over the world, all the countries that attack another country are responsible in the rehabilitation.
Marion says it's not about money, but recognition and acknowledgement. Guam was the only populated U.S. soil to be occupied by another country during World War II. Reporting for the KUAM News Team, I'm Sabrina Salas.